Setting the stage, Mobile, Alabama, at the turn of the century, 1901. At the dawn of the 20th century, America was a nation quietly shedding its old skin. The year was 1901. Queen Victoria had just died overseas. President William McKinley had been assassinated. The world felt uncertain, yet full of momentum. And far from the industrial smoke of New York and Chicago, along the warm, humid coastline of the Gulf of Mississippi, the city of Mobile, Alabama, stood at a rare crossroads. Mobile was not a young city. It was old, by American standards, ancient. Founded in 1702 by the French, ruled by the Spanish, occupied by the British, claimed by the Confederacy, and finally absorbed into the United States, Mobile carried layers of identity that few American cities possessed. Every street held memory. Every oak tree had watched flags change. By 1901, Mobile was no longer a colonial port, but it was also not fully industrial. It was something in between. A city caught between tradition and modernity. At the turn of the century, Mobile's economy rested on cotton exports, timber, shipping, and the deep water port connecting the South to global trade. Railroads had arrived. Electric streetcars were appearing. Modern plumbing and electricity were becoming symbols of progress. Yet socially, Mobile remained deeply rooted in old Southern hierarchy. Family names mattered. Reputation mattered. Manners mattered. This was a city where wealth preferred discretion. Unlike northern industrialists who flaunted success through massive estates and public philanthropy, Mobile's upper-class families often expressed prosperity quietly, through well-built homes, tasteful architecture, and social respectability. It was in this cultural climate that the Tacon-Barfield Mansion, later known as Tissington House, came into existence. Why 1901 mattered. To understand this house, one must understand timing. By 1901, the Victorian era was ending. Ornate architecture was falling out of favor. Simpler, more practical designs were emerging. In other words, the world was moving forward quickly. And yet, the decision was made to build a home in the Queen Anne style, a style already considered past its peak in major American cities. This choice was not accidental. It was deliberate. The people commissioning such a home were not chasing fashion. They were preserving identity. Government Street, a statement of place. Location mattered. Government Street was and remains one of Mobile's most prestigious corridors. Lined with historic homes, mature oak trees, and proximity to the city's civic heart, Government Street was where Mobile's elite rooted themselves physically and symbolically. Building a substantial home here was a declaration. We belong here. We have always belonged here. The Tacon-Barfield Mansion was never meant to dominate the street. It was meant to endure it. The social class that built Tissington House. These families associated with this mansion were not industrial titans. They were not railroad barons. They were not oil magnates. They belonged to a quieter class, professionals, merchants, administrators, people whose wealth came steadily, not explosively. This distinction is important because it shaped everything about the house, its scale, its design, its restraint. This was a home built for stability, not spectacle. Why no grand scandals exist? Many viewers expect dark secrets, murders, curses, dramatic downfalls, but historical records surrounding this house reveal something more subtle. There are no documented violent events connected directly to this mansion, no sensational crimes, no notorious deaths, and that absence itself tells a story. This was a well-managed household in a well-ordered social structure. The drama here was not explosive, it was gradual. The quiet pressure of change. As the 20th century progressed, pressures mounted. Younger generations sought opportunity elsewhere. Large homes became expensive to maintain. Domestic staff became harder to retain. Across the South, homes like this faced difficult futures. Some were sold, some subdivided, some demolished. Yet at this moment in 1901, none of that was visible yet. The house was new, hopeful, confident, and perhaps unaware that it stood at the end of an era, not the beginning. What this house represented at birth. At the moment of its completion, the Tacon-Barfield Mansion symbolized continuity in a changing world, respectability over excess, tradition over novelty. It was a home built not to impress strangers, but to reassure its owners. That reassurance would be tested by time. This house was not built as a monument to power. It was built as a promise that the world its owners understood would somehow continue. But history does not pause. It moves, whether we are ready or not. To truly understand the Tacon-Barfield Mansion, one must first understand the language it speaks. Not in words, but in architecture. Because architecture is never neutral. Every line, every curve, every material choice reflects values, anxieties, and beliefs of the time in which it was built. And in 1901, the language chosen for this house was already beginning to fade from fashion. It was called Queen Anne. What Queen Anne really meant in America. Despite its name, Queen Anne architecture had very little to do with the reign of Queen Anne herself. In America, the style emerged in the late 19th century as a reaction against rigid classical symmetry. It celebrated individual expression, variety over order, ornament over restraint. At its heart, Queen Anne architecture rejected the idea that beauty must be uniform. Instead, it embraced complexity. And complexity mattered deeply to the social class that built homes like this. Why Queen Anne was already declining by 1901. By the time the Tacon-Barfield Mansion was completed, cities like New York and Boston were turning toward Beaux Arts classicism. Simpler colonial revival homes were gaining popularity. Modern efficiency was becoming fashionable. Queen Anne was seen by some as excessive, even nostalgic. So why choose it? The answer lies not in taste, but in identity. Queen Anne as a quiet form of resistance. For southern cities like Mobile, architecture was more than design, it was memory. After the Civil War and Reconstruction, Southern elites sought ways to preserve continuity without openly defying change. Queen Anne offered a solution. It allowed homeowners to express stability, cultural refinement, a sense of rootedness, without copying Northern industrial aesthetics. In short, it was a way of saying, we are modern, but on our own terms. The Hand of George Franklin Barber. The Tacon-Barfield Mansion is attributed to George Franklin Barber, one of the most influential residential architects of late 19th century America. Barber was not famous for building singular landmarks. He was famous for something more subtle. He democratized elegance. Through mail-order plans, Barber made high-style architecture accessible to prosperous families across the country, including the South. His designs emphasized visual complexity, customizable details, practical interior layouts. This combination made his homes ideal for families who valued status but also daily livability. Reading the house. What the design tells us. When viewed carefully, the Tacon-Barfield Mansion reveals itself slowly. The asymmetrical facade. Nothing is perfectly balanced. This was intentional. Asymmetry suggested individualism, creativity, freedom from rigid social formulas. It mirrored a world where tradition and progress were no longer neatly aligned. Rooflines and gables. The roof does not sit quietly. It rises, overlaps, and reaches. In architectural language, this communicates aspiration. Not ambition in the aggressive sense, but a desire to elevate oneself culturally. The wraparound porch. Perhaps the most socially significant feature. Porches in Southern architecture were not decorative. They were transitional spaces, neither fully public nor fully private. From this porch, neighbors were greeted, news was exchanged, social boundaries were gently reinforced. The porch functioned as a stage, but a polite one. Stained glass and woodwork. Inside, craftsmanship speaks softly. Stained glass filtered harsh Gulf sunlight into warm-colored patterns. Woodwork was detailed but never excessive. This was not about opulence, it was about taste, and taste in this era was a form of social capital. Interior space as a map of values. The interior layout reflected the values of its time. Public rooms near the entrance, private rooms deeper within. Guests were welcomed but never allowed too far inside. This spatial hierarchy mirrored social hierarchy. Nothing was accidental. 6 bedrooms, what that really meant. 6 bedrooms may sound excessive today, but in 1901, it suggested multi-generational living, long-term stability, formal separation of children, parents, and guests. It was a house built to last generations, even if history would decide otherwise. What the house does not show. Equally important is what the house avoids. There are no monumental staircases, no vast ballrooms, no symbols of industrial excess. This restraint reveals something crucial. The owners were not trying to announce dominance, they were affirming belonging. The symbolism of building old style in a new age. By choosing Queen Anne in 1901, the builders were making a statement, quietly. They were anchoring themselves to a familiar world at a moment when the future felt uncertain. This house was not backward-looking, it was protective. Protective of social order, cultural memory, personal identity. Why this house still feels present. Many historic homes feel distant. This one does not, because it was built at a threshold between centuries, between mindsets. It carries tension, and tension endures. Architecture as silent witness. Unlike people, houses do not argue, they observe. The Tacon-Barfield Mansion observed the decline of ornamental architecture, the rise of modern efficiency, the shifting role of southern cities, and it absorbed those changes silently. This house does not shout its story, It allows you to discover it slowly. In its angles and ornament, we see a society negotiating with time itself. And long after the voices faded, the walls remembered. But a house is never just design. It is shaped and reshaped by the people who live within. The people behind the walls, ownership, daily life, and social reality. A house, no matter how carefully designed, remains incomplete without the lives lived inside it. Walls may endure, wood may age gracefully, but it is human presence, routine, habit, silence, and memory that gives a house its true character. To understand the Tacon-Barfield Mansion, we must step away from architecture and into the daily lives of those who occupied it. Ownership in context, not dynasties, but stability. Unlike the colossal estates of northern industrialists, the Tacon-Barfield Mansion was not built by a national dynasty. There were no railroads, no steel empires, no vast fortunes traced across continents. Instead, this house belonged to something quieter, local prominence. Families like the Tacons and the Tissingtons represented a class deeply rooted in Mobile's civic life. They were professionals, property holders, community participants. Their wealth was measured not by headlines, but by continuity. What owning a house like this meant in 1901. In early 20th century Mobile, a house of this scale conveyed something specific. It said this family intended to remain. This household valued reputation. This was not temporary success. Homes like this were declarations of permanence. They were built to be inherited, not sold. The Tacon family, presence without pageantry. Historical records suggest that the Tacon family was associated with the property in its early years. They were not social celebrities. They did not host extravagant public balls or dominate newspaper society columns. Their significance lay elsewhere. They belonged to the dependable backbone of the city, the people who attended church regularly, participated in civic life, and maintained long-standing social ties. Their influence was quiet, and quiet influence in the South often lasted longer. The name Tissington, an identity adopted. In Southern tradition, renaming a home was not unusual. It signaled transition of ownership, personal identity, emotional attachment. A name transformed a structure into a legacy. It suggested not just possession, but belonging. Daily life inside the mansion. Contrary to romantic imagination, life inside the house was not dramatic. It was structured. Morning routine. Mornings began early. Sunlight entered through tall windows, filtered by curtains and stained glass. Household members dressed formally, even at home. Breakfast was a deliberate ritual, not a rushed event. Social boundaries indoors. The house itself enforced behavior. Public rooms near the entrance, family areas deeper within, bedrooms upstairs removed from view. Visitors were welcomed, but never fully admitted. Privacy was protected by design. The role of women, invisible yet central. Women shaped the emotional life of the house. They managed household order, social obligations, children's education, moral tone. Yet their presence rarely appears in formal records. This absence is telling. Their influence was assumed, not documented. The quiet discipline of the house, its calm, measured atmosphere, likely came from them. Domestic staff, the unseen foundation. Like many homes of its class, the mansion relied on domestic labor. Staff were present, but rarely acknowledged publicly. Their lives intersected with the house in ways history seldom records. They moved silently through rooms, maintained order, and upheld the household's rhythm. Their stories remain largely untold, but their work shaped daily life profoundly. Social expectations, living under watchful eyes. In a city like Mobile, privacy was relative, reputation mattered. A house of this stature invited observation. Neighbors noticed how the home was maintained, who entered and exited, when lights burned late. The mansion was not only a residence, it was a public signal. Every action reflected on the family. Change enters quietly. As decades passed, the world outside the mansion shifted. Automobiles replaced carriages. Younger generations moved toward modern living. Social customs softened. The house remained largely the same. This created a subtle tension. The structure represented continuity, but the people inside were changing.